gate beneath your feet vibrates. Something enormous is pulling at the iron bar on the other side. And you realize it is not an animal. 80,000 Romans are screaming your name. They don't know your name. They are screaming at whoever walks out next. Today, that is you. Sand was raked clean 2 minutes ago. The blood from the previous bout soaked into it, so fast the crowd barely had time to react. You are standing in the hypogeum, the underground labyrinth beneath the arena floor, and the smell is rotting wood, animal waste, and burning torch fat. The gate lifts. The light hits you like a hammer. You are not a warrior. You are a prisoner of war 3 months ago. Now Rome is watching. In 80 AD, the Emperor Titus opened the Colosseum for the first time, and for 100 consecutive days, the killing did not stop. What you are about to experience is not a documentary. Using AI-assisted historical reconstruction, we have rebuilt every detail. The painted marble, the velarium shade sail, the ironclad fighters, and the sound. Real accounts from Roman historians, excavation records, and bone forensics from Colosseum graves fuel every frame. If this kind of raw, accurate, immersive history is what you came for, subscribe, drop a like, and tell us in the comments, what city and country are you watching from right now? 12 meters below the arena floor, the air does not move. There are no windows. There are no torches in every corridor. Only enough light to keep the animals from panicking. The hypogeum was not built for comfort. It was engineered for spectacle. 2 parallel corridors run the entire length of the oval, connected by 18 cross tunnels, each one timed to a specific act above. You can hear the wooden elevator shaft groaning beside you. It is called a hegmeter, a lifting platform, and it can carry a lion, a bear, or a man directly up through a trapdoor into blinding daylight. There are 36 of these elevators beneath the Colosseum floor. Roman engineers operated them using a counterweight pulley system. No machinery, just rope, timber, and men pulling in absolute silence on command. Floor above you is not stone. It is thick wooden planking, covered with 4 inches of compacted sand shipped from the beaches of Ostia, chosen specifically because it absorbs blood without pooling visibly. Caged behind iron bars to your left, a North African lion has been kept in darkness for 6 days. Hunger is the spectacle. The Roman staff called this process Vesturum preparatia, the preparation of beasts. The tunnel walls are brick and volcanic tuff. Scratched into the plaster near the eastern gate, previous occupants left marks, not names, but tally lines. Someone counted days down here. The counting stopped at 11. A horn blast from above shakes, dust from the ceiling. That signal means the editor, the game's organizer, has approved the next sequence. The pulleys engage. The platforms begin their slow, deliberate rise. You are pushed forward by a guard carrying a short wooden baton. He does not speak to you. His job is directional only. Left corridor, third gate. Stand on the platform. Do not step off. The trapdoor above your head cracks open. A rectangle of white Roman sky appears. The roar that falls through it is not a crowd sound you have ever heard before. It is pressure. It lands on your chest. The first thing your eyes register is not the crowd. It is the color. The Colosseum in 80 AD is not gray. It is not stone-colored. It is red, ochre, deep Tyrian blue, and bone white, painted travertine marble catching August, sun from every tier. Above you, stretched across the open oval like a second sky, hangs the velarium, a retractable canvas, awning operated by a dedicated unit of Roman sailors from the fleet at Mise-en-Plie. It filters the light amber gold. Seating structure rises 52 meters on all sides, roughly the height of a 17-story building. Every seat is occupied. 80,000 people produce a sound that has no comparison in the ancient world, or possibly any world. The closest tier, the podium level, sits just 4 meters from the arena floor. Those seats belong to senators, priests, and vestal virgins. You can see individual faces. One man is eating. He does not look up from his food. The arena floor beneath your sandals is not flat. It is slightly convex, a deliberate drainage design, so that liquid runs outward toward channel grates at the perimeter wall rather than pooling at center. At the north and south ends of the oval stand two decorated gates. The north gate, Porta Triumphalis, is where victors exit. The south gate, Porta Libertinensis, is named for Libitina, the goddess of corpses. That is where the dead are carried out. Between bouts, arena staff called Libitinari rake and recover the sand with fresh layers. They move fast, in teams, almost choreographed. The crowd watches this too. The efficiency is part of the spectacle, Rome erasing its own violence in under 4 minutes. Along the perimeter wall behind you, at eye level, runs a painted frieze of past games, specific fighters, specific kills. Named, dated, recorded. The Colosseum is not just an arena, it is a physical archive of sanctioned death. The editor of today's games sits in the imperial box, the Pulvina, elevated and canopied on the eastern curve. Emperor Titus is here personally for the inaugural games. His presence means the crowd's appetite will be indulged without ceiling. You are standing at the center of the sand. The raking crew has stepped back. The crowd has dropped 1 register in volume, not quieter, just more focused. That shift in sound is the most terrifying thing you have experienced in your life. In 1993, archaeologists excavating a second Ticheris cemetery outside Ephesus, Turkey, uncovered 67 skeletons. The bone trauma patterns were unlike any civilian burial site. Every injury was deliberate, angled, and clustered at specific anatomical targets. These were gladiators. The graveyard confirmed what Roman texts described, but scholars had long debated. These men were not randomly slaughtered. They were surgically fought, strikes aimed at joints, tendons, and non-fatal pressure points to extend the bout for the crowd. The Ephesus bones also revealed something unexpected about diet. Isotope analysis showed gladiators consumed massive quantities of barley and legumes, a deliberate high-carbohydrate regime that built a thick subcutaneous fat layer over developed muscle. That fat layer was functional armor. A shallow cut through body fat bleeds, visibly and dramatically, without severing the underlying muscle. The crowd saw blood. The fighter kept moving. Roman trainers understood human physiology with a precision that unsettles modern sports scientists. Back on the sand, the man walking toward you from the north gate is a murmillo. You can identify the type by his helmet, a high bronze crest shaped like a fish fin, a full-face grille, and cheek guards that leave only a narrow eye slit. His left arm carries a rectangular scutum shield, curved, layered plywood faced with leather and linen, edged in iron. It weighs 10 kilograms alone. His total equipment load is between 15 and 18 kilograms. He has trained under this weight for at minimum 2 years. You are classified as a retiarius, net and trident fighter. No helmet, no body armor. Only a left arm manica sleeve of segmented bronze, a shoulder guard called a gallerus, and a weighted net 3 meters in diameter that you have thrown 10,000 times in practice. The asymmetry is the design. Romans engineered gladiatorial matchups the way modern promoters engineer championship bouts. Contrasting styles, contrasting visibility, contrasting crowd allegiance. The retiarius was historically despised by Roman purists. Fighting without a helmet was considered shameless. The crowd already dislikes you. The Ephesus skulls showed one more pattern that stopped researchers. A high percentage of fatal wounds were single, precise strikes delivered from behind the ear or at the base of the neck, a finishing blow, not a combat wound. Someone administered it deliberately after the fight ended. The gladiator who lost did not always die from his opponent. He died from a trained arena official called the confector, who administered the kill cleanly on the editor's signal while the loser knelt with his chin raised. The crowd did not look away. That was the point. A gladiatorial bout in AD did not begin at full combat speed. It opened with a probatio armorum, a weapons inspection by the editor's officials, followed by a warm-up exchange with blunted wooden weapons called rudes. The crowd watched this too, reading each man's movement for weakness. transition from rudes to iron was announced by a horn. In the seconds between that signal and first contact, the noise in the Colosseum dropped to a register that ancient writers described as a held breath shared by 80,000 people simultaneously. Fight itself was not continuous. Roman combat protocol included called pauses, stamped misso, where both fighters stepped back and the crowd assessed. These pauses were not weakness, they were structural, built into the format the way rounds are built into modern boxing. Your net has a lead weight sewn into the perimeter every 30 centimeters. When thrown correctly, it opens to a full 3-meter circle in the air before dropping. You have thrown it 10,000 times in the ludus. Against a moving armored man in sand, in front of 80,000 people, the muscle memory partially fails. The Mamilo knows this. His trainer told him, let the Retiarius throw once. Close the distance during the recovery. Pin the net with your shield foot before it can be retrieved. You are now watching him execute that instruction in real time, and it is working. And a fighter went down, shield lost, weapon dropped, or simply exhausted. He raised his left index finger, not a white flag, not surrender, a formal petition to the editor for Misho. The official judgment of whether he lived or died. That single raised finger was a legal act inside the Roman state apparatus. The editor then looked to the crowd. What happened next is one of the most misrepresented moments in all of popular history. The crowd did not signal death with a thumbs down and life with a thumbs up. Roman sources, Juvenal, Prudentius, stone reliefs, describe the death signal as pollice verso, thumb turned or extended outward, mimicking a drawn blade. The mercy signal was a closed fist with thumb pressed inward, or in some accounts, the pressing of thumb to fingers, miming a sheathed weapon. Hollywood reversed it. The actual signal for death was a thumb out. The crowd at the Colosseum today is making the correct signal, and you are watching 80,000 thumbs extend outward toward the man on the sand beside you. The editor was not obligated to follow the crowd. He owned the games. He had paid for them directly from his personal fortune as a political investment. A popular fighter dying too soon was bad economics. Titus, watching from the Pulvina today, was known to favor mercy. The crowd knew this and pushed harder in the opposite direction, testing the boundary. The man beside you on the sand has his finger raised. His helmet is still on. He cannot see the crowd signal from inside the face grill. He is waiting in a darkness of his own, inside iron, unable to know which way the thumb is pointing. That specific not knowing, you understand, is a cruelty the Romans designed deliberately into the architecture of the moment. The Colosseum cost an estimated 300 million sestertii to build. Titus Flavius Vespasian, Titus's father, funded the construction entirely from a single source, the plunder of Jerusalem, seized in 70 AD after a siege that killed or enslaved an estimated 1 million people. The building is, at its financial foundation, a monument to that specific destruction. The 100-day inaugural games under Titus in 80 AD killed approximately 9,000 anamra, on recorded number of human combatants. Modern economic historians estimate the total cost of those 100 days at the equivalent of $50 million USD, drawn entirely from imperial treasury and Titus's personal fortune, spent in a single uninterrupted public spectacle. Admission to the Colosseum was free. Every seat, every day, for every Roman citizen regardless of class. The tessera, the admission token, a small lead or ivory disc, was distributed in advance through neighborhood networks. Senators sat closest to the sand. Slaves sat highest under the open sky. The seating chart was a physical diagram of the entire Roman social order. The editor who funded a day of games was not required to be the emperor. Any sufficiently wealthy Roman citizen, a magistrate, a senator, a military general seeking election, could sponsor games as a political gesture. The crowd's approval on the sand translated directly into votes at the comitia. Roman political campaigns were partly fought in blood and sand. Lannister Gladiator school owners operated what was effectively a staffing agency for violence. They purchased condemned prisoners, captured soldiers, and willing volunteers, trained them at enormous expense over 2 to 3 years, and leased them to editors at negotiated daily rates. The first-tier fighter, a named, crowd-beloved veteran, rented for more than a skilled architect earned in a year. Fighters themselves occupied a legally paradoxical position in Roman society. A gladiator was infamous, socially dishonored, stripped of citizenship rights, legally equivalent to a prostitute or actor, and simultaneously, the most celebrated gladiators were cultural phenomena. Their faces on ceramic lamps, their names scratched into Pompeii walls, their portraits commissioned in mosaic by wealthy Roman households who would never publicly admit admiring them. A gladiator who survived long enough, typically 5 to 7 bouts over 2 to 3 years, could be awarded the rudis, a wooden sword symbolizing honorable discharge. He became a free man. Some stayed. The pay for a veteran fighter was substantial, the crowd recognition intoxicating. And Roman civilian life offered nothing with equivalent status to a man who had already survived what most men could not imagine entering. The philosopher Seneca attended games once and left early, deeply disturbed, not by the violence, which he expected, but by what he observed in the crowd around him. He wrote that he returned home more greedy, more cruel, and more inhuman than when he arrived, purely from the contagion of proximity to 80,000 people simultaneously consenting to another person's death as entertainment. Seneca's discomfort was unusual for most Romans across 4 centuries of continuous arena operation. The games were not a moral question. They were civic infrastructure, like roads, like aqueducts, like the legal system, a mechanism by which Roman order was demonstrated, Roman hierarchy was displayed, and Roman collective identity was renewed through shared witness of controlled violence. Colosseum held its last gladiatorial combat in 404 AD, 325 years after Titus opened it. The games did not end because Rome developed a moral objection. They ended because the Western Empire was financially collapsing and could no longer sustain the cost. The crowd did not leave in protest. The funding simply stopped. Rome did not outgrow the arena. The arena outlasted Rome's ability to pay for it. The roar that follows a mercy decision is different from the roar that follows a kill. A kill produces a single explosive peak and rapid decay. The crowd releases and empties. Mercy produces a sustained rolling wave, because 80,000 people are now invested in seeing you again. You have become an asset. That is not a comfortable thing to become. You walk toward the Porta Triumphalis, carrying your trident and the coiled net. The sand pulls at your feet differently now. Your legs have the particular heaviness of muscles that have been at maximum output and are now shutting systems down. The gate is 30 meters away. It takes longer than it should. At the gate threshold, an official hands you a palm branch, the victory symbol, and a small leather purse. The purse contains your prize money, typically between 1,000 and 15,000 sestertia, depending on the crowd's enthusiasm and the editor's generosity. Titus is generous today. The inaugural games demand it. The purse is heavier than expected. Back through the gate and down the corridor, the hypogeum smells exactly the same as when you left it. The animal cages are still occupied. The pulleys are resetting for the next sequence. A crew is already moving the body of the fighter who lost the bout before yours through the Porta Libitonensis passage. The building has processed your survival and moved on before you have. The Ludus, the gladiatorial training school, attached to the Colosseum's eastern side by a covered underground passage, is where you return. Your cell measures 3 meters by 2 meters. It has a sleeping pallet, a ceramic water jug, and a small shelf. After what you have just survived, the smallness of this room is the strangest thing you have encountered all day. The medicus, the ludus physician, examines you the same evening. Roman gladiatorial medicine was sophisticated by ancient standards. The physician Galen of Pergamon began his career treating gladiators in 157 AD and later credited that work as the foundation of his anatomical knowledge. Wounds were cleaned with wine, packed with linen, and monitored for suppuration. Bone injuries were set with a precision that archaeological skeletal evidence confirms was often successful. What the medicus cannot treat is what has no name in Latin. Roman culture had no framework for what modern psychology identifies as the consequences of repeated traumatic combat exposure. The nightmares, the hypervigilance, the progressive emotional compression that veteran fighters displayed, these were categorized by Roman observers simply as the temperament of a man who had seen much. It was noted. It was not considered a problem requiring intervention. Graffiti excavated from the Ludus walls at Pompeii, a smaller gladiatorial school, but structurally identical to Rome's, shows fighters recording their bout tallies, their opponents' names, occasional crude portraits. One inscription reads, Celadus the Thracian, 3 bouts, 3 victories, the heartthrob of the girls. He wrote it himself, the self-mythologizing of a man assembling an identity from the only material the system gave him. You will fight again in approximately 30 days. The Lannister has already noted your crowd reception, recalculated your rental value, and begun negotiations with the next editor planning games. Your survival today was not a personal victory inside the Roman administrative record. It was an inventory update. The system that almost killed you this morning has already priced the next use of your body by this afternoon. In your cell, in the dark, you can still hear the crowd, not as memory, but as a physical sensation that has embedded itself somewhere behind the sternum and has not yet released. That sound is 80,000 people deciding, for approximately 11 minutes, that your existence was worth extending. You do not know what to do with that. No one in the Ludus will ask you. There is no Latin word for what you would say if they did. The Colosseum still stands because travertine limestone and Roman concrete do not dissolve easily, not because anyone chose to preserve a monument to what happened inside it. The building outlasted the empire that built it, the religion that eventually condemned it, and every civilization that has since used it as a backdrop for tourist photographs. The structure is indifferent to all of that. It has no position on its own history. What happened inside it, the engineering, the economics, the forensic detail of how those men fought and died and occasionally walked out, is not ancient. The impulse that filled 80,000 seats every day for 3 centuries is not a Roman pathology. It is a human constant that every subsequent civilization has expressed through different formats, at different price points, with cleaner branding. The man in the 3-by-2-meter cell did not know he was inside history. He knew the weight of the net, the dimensions of the sand, and the specific sound of 80,000 people deciding he was worth keeping. If you found this video, you watched for the same reason they attended. The difference between you and them is smaller than the Colosseum's architects would have needed to build a wall for.